think any new business that is going into a world of competitors has to do something that is different. That doesn't mean different for the sake of different, but different for the right reasons. Even if it's just being better at the same thing, that's still different. You're still better, but you can't be the same because otherwise there's no reason to exist.
Hello and welcome to Trillions. I am your host, Alyse Grace, and today I'm chatting with a super inspiring friend who shares a love of cars. In 2006, after 16 tries at businesses, Alborz Fallah bought a $35 domain, built a website, caradvice.com.au, and years later sold it to 9 Digital for $68 million. Alborz shares the honest ups and downs of his journey, how he narrowly avoided getting fired from his own company, what it felt like receiving millions in his bank account, and other great stories. You don't want to skip this episode. Listen up. So, Alborz, thank you for joining me today. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Than's for having me.
No
It's a
worries.
great view up here. I don't know if you guys listening obviously can't see it, but it's a really nice view. It's a nice room.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love living here. It's great to be amongst the hustle and bustle of Brisbane City. So, Alborz, you've started and failed 16 businesses before your great success of Car Advice. Tell us what you learned from your past failures.
Yeah, look, I actually don't like the term failure. I think that's probably not the right word.
Learnings?
Yeah, I think had I not failed, as they say, 16 times, I wouldn't have succeeded the 17th time. Then again, I mean, you could always sort of argue the terms failure and success, but yeah, absolutely. I'm a really terrible employee.
Me too.
Yeah, I really don't cope with having someone, not necessarily having someone tell me what to do, but not having an input in how I do it. I don't mind working for a cause or working for a company that I believe in, but if my vision doesn't align, then I find it really hard to sort of do that. So, which is why I started running businesses from a very young age. I started my first one, I think, when I was 12 or 11, all online. I made a mistake of going into a couple of retail stuff somewhere along the line, and learned a lot from that. But ultimately, it took me 16 times to realize to do a business I actually love to do, rather than try and do a business for the sake of making money.
Yeah.
Which is a trap that I think a lot of people fall into. They see an opportunity, they go, how do I exploit that? And they look at it from that perspective, and I guess in some ways they don't really look at a long-term picture and realize that really the only success you're going to have is if you love what you do.
Yeah.
And by loving what you do, you tend to be quite successful at it.
So what do you think of all these people who do something they don't love, but they may be high-level CEOs or founders that are kind of stuck in a business that they don't love?
Oh, look, I think high-level CEOs and founders must love what they do, otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I think there's an element of, if you're a CEO of a big multi-million-dollar company, you have to love what you do. I think they love the challenge, even if it's really hard. Being hard and loving is very different things. Like what I do is really hard, but I love doing it. Now, am I allowed to swear on this?
For it.
Okay, good, because I swear a lot. Look, I think it's more about the people that are sitting there doing a 9-to-5 job that they fucking hate, and the money's good, and they go, I've got a mortgage, I've got kids. I get all that, man. I really do. And I guess for some people maybe it's a different scenario, but you couldn't fucking pay me all the money in the world to do that shit, because I would rather live in a 1-bedroom apartment somewhere on Centrelink whilst trying to make something work than collecting a wage from some dead-end job that I fucking despise going to every day.
Yeah, and you've obviously changed many lives by doing what you do. You've got many employees, and you've got a family, so if you didn't do what you've done, then you wouldn't be able to help all these people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything you do has an impact on everything else, and it certainly hasn't been just me. I mean, I've had an amazing team behind me for a very long time that have really helped me build not only some of the previous businesses, but Car Advice and the next business that I'll be doing as well. So it's not just me, but yeah, I mean, you don't really realize when I started Car Advice, I would never have imagined it having close to 50 employees by the time I left, and generating the sort of revenue that it was generating, or being anything of substance, really. I guess that you could call that not having a real vision, but really all I wanted to do was talk about cars, and I loved doing it.
Yeah.
And I thought if I could do this and make money out of it, that would be great. But it wasn't with some sort of amazing. It was actually the only business where I didn't have a business plan. All the other 16 businesses, I felt like I had more of a business plan, because I sat there and did the revenue and tried to work out how this would go year 1 and year 2, and really had to ramp it up and stuff. Car Advice, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to have some fun. that's the only one that worked.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So what were you doing when you started? Like you said you were working. What was that job, and how did you know that you were at a stage where you could quit?
So my 16th business was basically an internet cafe, which is probably the worst idea I've ever had. Seemed like a good idea at the time.
In Brisbane?
In Brisbane, in St Lucia in Brisbane, at St Lucia Village, not far from the University of Queensland, where I was studying. Not that I did much study, but
What were you studying?
Psychology and IT.
Okay.
So I wanted to get into AI. That was really my hope from an academic perspective, but there's no AI happening in Brisbane or Australia for that matter, I think. So I really had to move overseas for that. But I'd sort of signed a 2-year lease for this internet cafe, which is a terrible, terrible idea. And finally that was coming to an end, and I was like, I'm done with this entrepreneur shit. Like I was devoted the last sort of 15 years of my life doing it. I felt like at that point, maybe 10 years. I was pretty young still. Yeah, from 12 till 22. Yeah, it was about 10 years. Didn't have a real job ever. That was really my only real job was working for myself. And all my friends had like proper jobs. I put that in quotation marks if you can't see it. And they were earning, constant income. They were going out. They bought a new car, that sort of thing where they feel like their life's in order, and I'm, living hand to mouth. If at all, I was pretty broke actually. I didn't have any money. So I decided that I might try and get a real fucking job.
Yeah.
So I did. I got a real job at the University of Queensland doing IT support. They gave me this red uniform, which is the ugliest thing. Not that I'm into fashion. I mean, I'm usually wearing Crocs, but that was honestly the ugliest uniform you could possibly imagine having to put on every day. It was quite demeaning. And I fixed keyboards and broken mice and went to people's computers when something didn't work or the printer stopped working, or I felt like I had spent so many years studying for a start, but also so much experience in business. And then I was dealing with the most benign and useless fucking problems that really a 12-year-old kid could solve.
Non-inspiring.
And it was honestly quite a very depressing period of my life where I was like, yay, look at me, I'm earning good money. That's actually the most money I'd ever earned at that point because it was a real job with consistent income plus great super and all that sort of stuff. And my parents were like, yes, he got a job. He's not a bum. But I was like, fuck, if this is what it's supposed to be, then someone throw me off a building.
Yeah. So then let's talk about some of the good stuff, some of the exciting stuff that you've done. So Car Advice had some pretty good success in the first 12 to 24 months. So tell us about that. How were you competing with these other massive companies like Fairfax and News Corp that had big budgets, and how did you make it profitable within those short couple of years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I'll tell you how I started Car Advice. Firstly, is I used to have a friend of mine that also worked casually at UQ. His name was Yarrow, and he was very much to the entrepreneur mindset. And he said to me, "So why have you given up?" I said, "I've tried all this shit. It just doesn't work." And he said, "Well, what have you tried?" I said, "Blah blah." I said, "Well, what's your passion?" I said, "I don't know. I really like cars." I said it in like a stupid way. Like I just like cars. He goes, "Well, why don't you do something in that space?" And I was like, "Well, what the fuck would I know about cars, right?" Like I mean, I love cars. I read everything about cars, but I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a journalist. I'm none of those things, right? And anyway, it was just something that sort of popped into my head and sort of planted a seed. And I just started thinking about it, going, you know what? Why wouldn't I fucking do cars? Like, what stops me from writing about cars that gives something, that somebody else that writes about cars has? That's an example. And I watched way too much Top Gear growing up. So in some ways, looking up to people like Jeremy Clarkson, I was like, that's the job I want to do. That would be the most amazing thing in the world. So I was sitting in my computer one day at work, like 3 hours into a day when I'd done absolutely fucking nothing. No one had even noticed whether I was there or not. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to fucking do something with cars. And I started looking for domain names. And the first thing I came up with was Car Advice. And I thought, there's no fucking... I almost didn't check it. I thought, there's no fucking way that's going to be free. Like, someone would have taken that. That's such a good domain. It was free. It cost me $35.
Awesome.
And I registered it. I had the site up and running in 48 hours. And I started writing about cars. It was just a WordPress install with me writing really poorly about cars. And the traffic just was unbelievable. Like I see, one of the businesses I ran previously was sort of internet marketing. So I had a really good deep understanding of SEO and I had a pretty good IT background, so that was helpful.
Back then it's pretty good too.
Yeah, it was very helpful back then. It was really still a buzzword, SEO. It wasn't well understood like it is today in some extent. So yeah, within the first, I think 2-3 months, the traffic was gone from nothing to a couple of thousand a day, and then it just kept exponentially growing.
Wow.
And then I got an email from someone that said, I found your site. I'm in the car industry. Would love to meet. I think it's got a lot of potential. Name was Anthony Crawford, who I would now consider probably one of my best friends. And he came on board, and fuck, man, it was like a decade of a roller coaster ride, and with a pretty good ending. Not a very good departure, but a pretty good ending. And it was awesome. I wouldn't regret a minute of it.
So how did you know that Anthony was a good person to bring in? And how did you know how much equity to give him?
We have. It's a good question. We have this joke to this day internally, because the first time we met, at the time I had this purple Ford Falcon that I was so embarrassed to be seen in. Whenever I used to go to the valley, I used to park it a couple of 100 meters away.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and make sure no one saw me get out of it, because I figured it would hurt my chances of anything. So when I was going to go meet him on the Gold Coast, so he flew up. He had an apartment on the Gold Coast from Sydney. I asked my friend, who had a much nicer car than me, to give me a ride up, so that at least first impressions I don't look like a complete fucking idiot.
What was the car?
It just had a black WRX, which at the time was a cool car.
It was, yeah, I remember.
Now I kind of go, that would be embarrassing. Not really. I had a WRX after that. I still love that car. But so I drove up. I didn't know a thing about the guy. I didn't even Google him. He told me all the stuff he'd done. I sort of just took him at face value. I just really liked him. Like a very charismatic, charming character, a lot of belief. So he said to me many years later, and we still joke about it, that he'd called someone the day before and said, I want to go meet this guy. I want to be involved in his business. I'm going to ask him for half equity in the business to help him build it. And his friend told him, look, that's probably going to scare him off. So don't do that. Just ask for 25% and hopefully he'll settle on 20 or something. And he went, all right, okay. So he came in the next day and we had the chat, and I really liked him. And then he said, look, I really want to help you, but I want to have an equity in this business, Can I get 25%? And I was like, yeah, no worries. Didn't even fucking I would have given him 50.
Yeah.
I would have. And to this day, that still pains him, because that's a lot of millions of dollars that I guess would have been split slightly differently. So from there, it was war. We went to war then. We genuinely went to war against News Corp and Fairfax. In many respects. It was really hard. It was like, people say, a lot of people tell me now, back then it was easy because the internet was a different field and blah, 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 blah. Man, I can tell you, it was not easy. It was fucking hard. And there were so many challenges, and we came close to being bankrupt so many times. We were trading insolvent for a little, we went through a GFC as we launched the company in 2016. We started taking it really seriously sort of early 2017 into the GFC, where car companies all were going bankrupt or pulling marketing budgets. And 1 month we would make 30 grand, next month we would make 4.
Oh man, that's stressful.
And we had employees, and it was really stressful. Yeah, it was. I think I aged prematurely. Yeah.
I think you look alright considering the roller coaster ride you've been on.
Yeah, I guess so.
So a lot of people would think that it's the dream, right? You started an internet business, 10 years later you sell out for many millions. Excuse me. So the GFC was tough. What was another challenge that you went through that you think was a blessing in disguise, looking back?
I don't know about blessing in disguise, but I certainly had a lot of challenges with early investors that came on board that weren't the right people, that really didn't help what we wanted to do and really didn't see our vision, wanted to do their own thing and sort of held us to ransom. It's all well and good to own a majority of a company, which we did, but if you don't control the purse strings, it's pointless. The person who controls the purse strings is the one that actually owns the company. So even though we had investors with significantly less shareholding, because they were the ones that were basically in charge of the money, they tend to dictate a bit of the vision of the company and where it was going. So that was a bit of a challenge. It took me a while to unwind that situation, a lot of politics and a lot of time wasted in getting control of the board of my own company, and make a great movie, actually. There is a book coming out in August, so that'll be good.
Cool. How can people get their hands on the book?
Well, it's actually, I got the first 10 chapters this morning. So
are you writing, or you have a
I'm helping it. I honestly, God, I have got a person who's much better at writing it than I do, who's were interviewing, and he was interviewing us and getting the book done. But I'm really excited about that because I think the story is, it's honestly, you wouldn't believe it. You know, they always say fact is stranger than fiction. It's something like that. It's absolutely crazy.
Wow.
The amount of politics that was involved in just gaining control of your own company, and the amount of times that I nearly got fired from my own company, and the amount of times I had to stop Anthony from getting fired from his own company, and like we had situations where we felt like we'd completely lost control of the company, and we had to actually start strategically planning how to get it back, and instead of just fucking focusing on building a great business. Like, there were so many years, there's about a 3-year period where I feel like we just wasted time on politics and on getting our own shit in order, and you know, and shareholders backstabbing each other and things like that. Meanwhile, we could have continued to build the business. So honestly, when I think about where the outcome of the company was in terms of a sale, I'm still fucking amazed that despite all the troubles and all the things, we still built something of such tremendous value to someone. So it was fucking hard. Yeah. The thing that annoys me the most is when people say to me, oh, you know, the right place, right time. It's like, yeah, okay. Tell that to the first 16 businesses.
Or you're lucky.
And the last 10 fucking years of my life. But yeah.
So how would you recommend somebody choose board members more carefully, or be a little bit more strategic if they're naive in the early stages of business and they have a good thing going genuinely?
Yeah.
What would be your advice to someone?
Well, I'm going through that process right at this very moment for the next business. So I can tell you, my experience has been to bring on board members that add a very specific set of core values to the business. So there's no fucking point giving seats to investors for the sake of giving seats to investors because they have a shareholding. If anything, that's probably the worst thing you could do. What the investors really... Look, from an investment perspective, and I've made a fair few in companies since I sold mine, I have a complete hands-off approach. Like, I get the reports every once in a while. I might talk to the founders, see how they're going. But I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be harassing them. I just want to know that they're running the business properly.
Sure.
You know, and I want to know that they've got the board members that helps them run the business properly. I don't want to be on the fucking board. What am I going to add value to? Sure, I've got a lot of opinions, and I've got a lot of advice, but they can just call me, and they do. And that's sort of my approach. Like, I'm only putting people on the board that help us strategically. And previously, I had people on the board that just happened to be investors, which just meant the board meetings were shambles. So yeah, a lot of learnings there. But look, we did a lot of great things at Car Advice too. Yeah, we did a lot of great things at Car Advice. So
yeah.
I think we sort of gloss over that sometimes. I think it's important though for people to listening to realize that these successful businesses from the outside have had so many failures within themselves on the inside.
Yeah.
I don't think people really see that because no one really ever talks about the turmoil of running a company in detail. And I think that as a result of that, people start a new business and they're 12 months in and go, well, fuck, this is not going well, because I've never heard anyone talk about the struggles. You know what I mean? Like, people that haven't had the experience of failure, they get so discouraged by setbacks that they go, well, fuck it, this is not working, because by this stage, blah, blah, blah company that I heard a podcast with was doing this and that. And it's like, dude, everyone's different. And
all the journeys are different.
All the journeys are different. You're going to have a lot of setbacks along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And entrepreneurship's not as glamorous as it looks. It is.
No, it's not.
I think it is painted to be very glamorous, but it's.
I don't know where that got that image from. Where do you think the glamour comes from?
I think social media, man. Like, people post on social media their highlight reel and.
But what are they posting? I'm sitting at a cafe in my laptop.
Well, you got lots of cool pictures of cool cars, for example, and then there's other people out there.
That's after my success.
Of course, but people can look at you and think that you're still on that entrepreneurial journey and that it's easy, but they don't see the non-highlight reel. They don't see the struggles. Who really wants to get on social media and say,
I'll tell you a highlight.
Hey, I had a shit day today.
I'll tell you a highlight reel. I was up till 2:30 last night working on design for the new stuff, emailing people, and I must have gotten up 6 a.m. the day before. I feel like I'm running on 4 hours sleep at the moment. And that's post apparent success because I'm starting a new business. You know, people always ask me this question, and it's the strangest question. It's like, how do I be successful? And I just find that so fucking weird. It's a really fucking strange question. You know, everyone wants to be successful, but I think so many people don't actually want to put in the effort.
Yeah, I agree.
They don't know what it takes. They don't realize that it's not... Maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's people like me that put pictures of their fancy cars and...
I don't think it's your fault, man. I think people...
Flying first class around the place. But fuck, man, like in between those highlight reels is fucking emotional distress, pain, anxiety, a lot of suffering. It's hard work. It's really, really fucking... It takes a mental and emotional and physical toll on you.
It sounds like it's in balance though. It sounds like with all that hard work and that stress and anxiety, the wins are incredible and it's like being on a high, right? So it sounds like it's in balance.
Yeah, look, I think perhaps like yourself, I'm extremely goal driven. So I like to set a goal and I like to hit it. And I will do fucking whatever it takes to get there. Within reason, obviously. But if you don't have those tangible goals, I kind of feel like you'll never really progress that far because you don't know what you're fighting for. You got to have something worth fighting for because when you get there, at least, you can look yourself in the mirror and go, I did it. Honestly, that morning when I woke up and the money had gone into the bank account from the sale of the business, and I had this, when you get paid, there's I don't know if you got NetBank on your phone or whatever, the app that says you've been paid this much in your bank account.
Yeah.
the notification couldn't fit the zeros.
That's
and
cool.
I just kept looking at that. I didn't want to unlock my phone because it was like the fucking weirdest thing to see a notification. It was so casual.
Yeah.
Like just a weird, it's like the coolest notification you could ever imagine on your phone. And I remember I just kept looking at it. I didn't go to work till like 11 that day because I was just standing in my hotel room and sitting, just kept looking at my phone going, fuck, is that real? And then I went to an ATM and I must have got like 50 printouts of the balance because it just went to my everyday savings
That's
account.
really cool. Do you think that the first dollar you made on your blog or receiving that notification was better? What gave you more joy?
Definitely the notification.
Really?
Oh, fuck
okay.
Yeah. That was a surreal. That was one of those moments where you kind of go, unless I had a gambling problem, I can't fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, I'm okay now. Like I can take a month off. Not that I ever have, but there was just this, you have no idea when you get to a point where you feel like you've got financial security, it completely changes your life. Like I'm actually working harder now than I was when I started Car Advice. And yes, there is going to be financial reward for my business going forward, but now I'm doing it because I want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's fucking great. It's such a good feeling to want to do it. I'm enjoying it. Like I'm enjoying working 10, 14 hours a day to build something again. One, because I want to know that I can, and two, because I really want to. That's amazing.
So what did you do with some of that cash? Did you invest some, or how did you, if you're willing to speak about, what do you do with that much, those many millions? Because you sold for, was it 35 million?
That was for
Nine Digital.
We sold it to Nine Digital. The figure was quite a bit higher than that in the final sale price. I can't technically tell you.
That's okay.
You can go and Google it. You'll probably find it around. Or look at Nine's financials. I had never invested a cent of any of my money in anything up until that point. It was around a month prior to the election between Trump and Hillary. And I was like, I'm going to fucking put it all in the stock market.
Crazy.
It was crazy, but I'm kind of like that. So the day before the election, I was obviously, as everybody thought, I was betting on Hillary to win. I went and put many millions into IT stock, into tech stock, Facebook, a few other things, because figured that Hillary's going to win. That's going to be a huge benefit to the technology sector. Of course, fucking Hillary didn't fucking win some way. Actually, thanks to Facebook, surprisingly, and all that hacking and all that stuff. So I had I think it was a 15% decline in my portfolio within 24 hours.
Oh no!
Investment. So I'm looking at going, fuck, I've just lost an absolute shit ton of money in one 24-hour period, and I felt like the biggest fucking idiot. I thought, oh, great, good one. I initially thought, I'm just going to sell and get out and never do this again. But I thought, nah, it's just going to be fine. It's going to rebound. Like, it's stupid to think about this as short term. What I should have done is just waited an extra day and bought in later. But it fucking rebounded so hard within a month or two that by the end of the first 12 months, because I'd waited that long to get the benefit of capital gains tax discount, I was up 48%.
Oh, nice.
On my first investment. That I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. It was just the pure everything into tech, and I couldn't believe it. I made more money in that 12 months from that investment than I had made from my entire salary at Car Advice for the 12 years prior.
Oh, wow.
So it was, and then I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? You know?
Yeah.
There was an element of that. You kind of go, you know, if I can, you get a bit cocky, I suppose, when you have such a great return. You kind of go, I could just do this day in, day out. It's so fucking easy.
It was gambling, right?
It's kind of like gambling. Gambling with some understanding of what you're gambling in. But I've been very lucky with the stock market. I've done extremely well. I got out of that, and I went in harder again into other stuff. And as of a few days ago, I was about 50% cash in my sort of net worth. As of yesterday, with the worst of the coronavirus, I'm down to 3% cash because I'm just buying. I'm investing heavy because I'm not seeing this as a...
Well, they say save cash for the crash. So if,
Exactly.
as you see the stocks going down, it's
I'm
often a good time to buy.
I'm so deep into the stock market at the moment in the coronavirus thing because that's a sort of... I like to take risks, so that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So let's go back to Car Advice a little bit. There's a really cool story you have about how you got credibility in the car industry to get dealers to give you cars.
Yeah.
What did you do to gain credibility in those really early years as a young 20s guy writing about cars?
So I think it's these days it's pretty easy to get cars. The landscape has changed a lot. But back then when we first started, I couldn't even get a Kia to drive or a Hyundai to drive. So it took a lot of effort, a lot of convincing car companies to give this 20-something-year-old kid that had really no credibility whatsoever to review cars, right? So Anthony came up with this concept where basically, fuck these guys, let's go and drive the world's fastest and most expensive car as a point. So that is, we've gone to the opposite end of the spectrum. We've done the absolute best. You've driven literally, you couldn't drive anything that was more expensive or faster at the time, which was the Bugatti Veyron. And then when we come back to Australia, that will be it. Like there'll be no more questions asked. And I said to Tony, I said, dude, there's no fucking way Bugatti is going to give us the car. I mean, why the fuck would they give a bunch of Australians, where the car isn't even sold? Let's just put that in perspective. A Bugatti to drive. He goes, no, man, they will. Trust me. You just got to ask them. Why wouldn't they? Like, what have they got to lose? And I was like, oh, that's a good question, I suppose. So he started that process. Emails, calls, emails, calls. The hustle. The hustle is what he's good at. And then he calls me one morning, and I'm sort of sitting. I was living at my parents' house, sitting in my room in my parents' house, working on my laptop, probably wearing in my underwear. And he goes, "Oh man, I got the Bugatti," and I was like, "What Bugatti? What are you talking about?" He goes, "The Veyron, man. We got the Veyron." I was like, "What do you mean you got the Veyron?" He goes, "Dude, I've got the fucking Veyron booked in for these days. We've got to go to Europe." And I was like, "Dude, I'm fucking too tired for jokes this morning." He goes, "I'm not fucking joking. I've got the Bugatti for these dates. We've got to go to Europe." And I was like, "Fucking send me the email." So he forwarded me the email from the guy at Bugatti. He's like, "Okay, you can have the car for these 3 days." I was like, "Holy fuck." He's actually booked the fucking Veyron for 3 days. And then we went, well, fuck this, we're going to Europe. We may as well do a bit more stuff. So then we got a couple of Lambos and an Aston Martin while we were there. And we went over there with a film crew and a photographer and did the whole thing. And man, that thing went viral on YouTube. We were the first people to be allowed to film in the Bugatti factory ever.
Wow.
I know. And we
what
showed
a
up.
score.
And we showed up with a home camera. It was on film.
Yeah.
That's how fucking poorly equipped we were. And it was actually, now when I think about it, I'm actually surprised they didn't just kick us out. So I suspect they were expecting a film crew to show up.
So the equipment doesn't matter, really. For all these cats out there now trying to start a business or start a podcast,
it was literally a fucking home
matter.
camera. We shot the whole thing on a home camera.
Well done.
We were very lucky. We had a very good videographer. But the video came out amazing. It went viral on YouTube. It got onto Discovery Channel.
Awesome.
Yeah, they bought the rights to the video, and it's still on repeat. Every once in a while, I still see it show up. Crazy, so many years later. But and then we came back to Oz, and there was a bit of a shock in the industry about what the fuck, who are these guys, and how do they get there, and why do they do this, and it's we had to push the envelope with all that sort of stuff. We had to do things differently. We had to challenge the status quo. I think any new business that is going into a world of competitors has to do something that is different. That doesn't mean different for the sake of different, but different for the right reasons. Even if it's just being better at the same thing, that's still different. You're still better, but you can't be the same because otherwise there's no reason to exist.
Yeah.
And that was our point of difference. We we didn't just fucking skyrocket it from there. We just went, fuck it. We just got most of the car companies were on board. We just started reviewing cars. We owned the SEO space. Just dominated traffic, man. And we got sued along the way by every competitor for the most benign, stupid reasons. Was
anybody successful, or you managed to?
No, it was the most ridiculous stuff. I'll give you an example. We had, when you use Google Images as search, every once in a while when you needed to write a story about a car where we didn't have an image of it ourselves, we would just Google image and take a photo. And we found a photo of this 1990s something Suzuki on Google Images because we're writing about a recall of that car. The government had called a recall for some safety issue. Anyway, we wrote the story, didn't think anything of it. We got a letter from Fairfax many months later saying that was an image that they had taken in 1990 something.
Yeah, wow.
Now, to be fair, we didn't find that image on a Fairfax website. We found it on some other guy's fucking website, right? They sent us a bill. I can't remember if it was like thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'm like, on what fucking planet is that photo worth that much money? And obviously we removed the photo, but they were like, no, you need to pay us. It already had his commercial gain. I was like, man, we didn't make that much money that month from everything we wrote, let alone that fucking story. And I came to the realization that they were doing that just to fuck with us, because that's what big businesses do when they see a threat from a small competitor. No one gets their team of lawyers to go through the pain or process of doing all that stuff if it wasn't for some other benefit than recouping whatever amount of money it was. We managed to settle that, but we've had things from News Corp. It was endless. It was endless. Litigation was endless.
So in those times where where the big dogs are trying to beat down on you, how were you competing, and how did you continue to push through?
Honestly,
emotionally and with the team, and
I learned something from that. Excuse me. I learned something from that, which I tried really hard to apply later when car advice was the big dog, and that was when you try and beat down a smaller competitor by stuff that is immoral or unethical or unreasonable, all you do is give them strength, because they just come back fighting 10 times harder. They come back with emotional energy that you cannot fucking match, because when they were trying to fucking sue us, when they were trying to beat us down, when they were trash talking us, when they were saying things to the industry that weren't true, it was just riling us up, man. We were working extra hours. We're gonna fuck you guys up. That was the sort of mentality that I had. And
so it fueled your mission. And
in a absolute fucking weird twist of fate, when Nine bought us, they also merged with they merged with Fairfax, which owned our biggest competitor called Drive. And this might sound fucking cruel, but we fight every fucking person at that company when we took control. And those were the people that were trying to sue us many fucking years earlier. And I took no pleasure in that from a human perspective, but it was a very strange process to get to, where they were trying to kill us for so many fucking years, and we ended up being the ones that literally killed them. Life has a funny way of turning those things around, but honestly, and that lesson for me, being the underdog, was when I'm not the underdog, not to do that to smaller players, because all it does is gives them air, gives them motivation to beat you. And whenever we had a lot of small sites that used to steal our content. I dealt with them by emailing them and say, hey mate, just FYI, I don't think you realise, but that's our image. And they go, oh dude, I'm really sorry. I said, that's cool, just link back to us. That's it.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And good work on your site, looks great. And they'd be like, oh, that's nice. You know what I mean? Because they were seeing us as the enemy, and I made them feel like I wasn't the enemy. And in some ways, you almost take the energy out of someone by doing that, because they hate you less. They don't want to necessarily beat you, because you're not, when you've got a certain feeling towards a company or a person and you're going after them really fucking hard and they're picking on you, that even makes you want to go after them even. At least that's what motivates me. So
Did it help you make your system stronger within your business as well, like your legal side? So
No, not at all. We never had a lawyer. We never had a legal counsel.
Oh, wow.
It's a waste of fucking money, guys. It's honestly, that sort of stuff, you deal with it as it comes, and most of it is just someone... As long as you're not going out of your way to steal someone's stuff, because we never did that. There was a couple of times where it was done without realization. As long as that's not your purpose, if you're doing the right thing 99.999% of the time, and occasionally by accident you make a mistake, you don't need to. You don't need that stuff. I think something I learned along the way was was what culture means in a company. And culture for me in a company means you don't need to have those processes. If your culture is right, you don't need to have a cultural policy.
How do you go about creating good culture?
I think it comes. I don't think you can't create it. It just comes. Like we had so much fucking fun at Car Advice, at least in the early days. We just had, I can't, like the amount of stories, the shit we got up to. Like there are days where we all get back together and actually cry with laughter.
Yeah.
Like literally on the floor because we just can't fucking believe the shit we got up to. And it built such a strong bond amongst the people that were there, which is why most of them have come with us to start a new company. Because we love the culture. Like we love that feeling of, I guess it was like a brotherhood in some ways.
Because you were all driving cars and writing about them and
not even that. It was even the marketing staff, the sales staff, and anyone that was in the back end, because there's a lot of people in the back end operations as well. But like I remember the Sydney office, like the parties we used to have and going out, and it was just mad, man. Like it was fucking off the charts. They had so much fun.
So it's important to celebrate the wins along the way.
Yeah, it was important to celebrate the wins. But that culture was really strong. Got a bit out of hand occasionally, but usually someone always pushes it over the line. But when that culture dies, it's when I decided I wasn't going to be there. Yeah.
And so then how did you, for a couple of months, I think, or even a year leading up to the sale, there was talk of you guys listing.
Yes.
So why did you choose to sell instead of list?
That's a question that I still cannot fully answer. I have a lot of regrets around it. I think that had we wisened up our processes slightly as a business and gone down the listing path, we did go down a listing path. Let's not, we were actually not far away from a listing. We even had our own code for the ASX, which we had on the side of all our company cars already, which was kind of cool actually. But I think in some ways at the time, I was going to say 99.9, but realistically 100% of my net worth was in Car Advice. I had no money. Like I had a salary, which wasn't much. It was good, but it wasn't much. And then I had all my net worth in shares in a company that was illiquid. Mm-hmm. And the threat of listing it and it not working was there. The threat of listing it and not me being able to sell the shares because I'm a founder and a director was there. So there was an element of, if I list this thing, am I ever going to see much money out of it? Is it going to be a 5-year process for me to actually, liquidate some stocks? But the upside was it would have been worth a fuck ton more had we got it right. Because car sales today is a $4 billion business.
Wow. And
we were second to car sales at that time. And usually the second player is worth 10% of the first player. So I genuinely believe had we listed it and done it right, we could have got it to be a $300 to $400 million business. Without a doubt in my mind.
So then, you can't talk about it. That's okay. So after Car Advice and nowadays you've been talking about a new venture. What's on the cards now? I know it's 15 days until your new venture launches. So
yeah,
what can you tell us about it?
Like I said, I'm not sleeping very much at the moment because I'm doing a lot of stuff. It is quite a stressful period. We're raising money. We've got staff. We've got all the processes, and it's that early day stuff that it's really exciting, but also could be quite an anxious period. So the parent company is called Expert Media, and our first venture is Car Expert.
Cool.
So I suppose if you do Control F Advice with Control R Expert, you might get an idea of something we're trying to do. Obviously, it's not going to be Car Advice again. It's very different in many ways, but also similar in many ways. So basically, we took the best people out of Car Advice when I left. Our best sales guy, best tech guy, SEO, social, best journalists.
You're allowed to do that?
I was given the opportunity to do that, yes.
Oh, nice.
I know. I think they may regret that decision. But honestly, I think I have no ill feelings towards Car Advice. I think the company is going to continue to do well and go strong. And I hope it does because it's my legacy in there. But it's doing something that I don't want to do. I want to go back to loving cars again without a corporate environment shackles, and that's what we want to do. We want to go back to what made car advice work in the first place, which was provide an environment for car enthusiasts that love cars, that help influence the people that don't love cars to buy cars.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, in many ways, we always saw it as what we write, the car people read, and then those car people are people in their individual groups that other people ask about cars. So, you know, if you got someone in your family that you know fucking loves cars, if you're going to buy a car, you're going to call them and say, hey, or call her and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a Mazda 3. What do you reckon? Chances are he or she reads car advice, or now car expert, and they're going to get their opinion based on some of the things we've said, which helps. So those are people we're going after and sort of building that process again.
Yeah, cool.
Plus, on top of that, we have a ridiculous strategy plan for how to get us to $1 billion business.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you got a timeline, or you're just aiming for that?
Yes, it's about a 3 to 4 year period.
Wow, that's short.
Sorry, we're not going to be $1 billion business in 3 to 4 years.
That's quick.
But my vision is to lead to a listing,
mm-hmm.
which would then hopefully over the next decade or so see us get to where we want to go. And it's not just media. That's all I'll say. It's not just content. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's very exciting. The prospect of it makes me very excited. Not the money, but the prospect of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So will you still be driving cars?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I love. If I give that up, I don't care anymore. So I've got a lot of my own cars now, so it has in some ways fed my craving for driving fast cars.
Mm.
So now I get into I've been driving around a Nissan Patrol this week, which is like a big giant SUV, and I get to actually appreciate it for what it is. It's nice. I just love cars. Doesn't matter what it is.
What's your favorite of your collection at the moment?
I don't.
You don't have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite.
What's your favorite for going fast then?
They all go fast.
What's your favorite for going around the track?
Honestly, there's no favorites in anything. My favorite car is my Aston. I'll put that out there, is because it's the first car I ever bought that I was really proud of.
Yeah.
And it was the car I had on my vision wall when I was growing up. And it was the first car that I drove it. I still remember driving over the Story Bridge in Brisbane and thinking, I was like 23, 24, broke as fuck. I could barely afford to have dinner, and I was driving around in a Vantage convertible that I had for a test to write about. And it's actually quite cruel to give someone in that situation something of such enormous worth, which then people associate with because they think it's your car, and to sort of understand what that lifestyle could be, to then hand it back. And
that's part of your job though, right?
I know, but it's quite possibly one of the most depressing feelings when you don't get to experience that very often, because it's like, you know, that old saying of this is how the other half live. You get to experience that for a couple of days. You know, you go places or you park somewhere and there's an attention, there's all that sort of stuff to it. But I remember when I drove that over the Story Bridge, and just the sensation, I was like, fuck, if I can ever afford this. And then I went, no, when I can fucking afford this is the first thing I'm going to buy. And it was. And I bought it when I couldn't afford it, to be honest. I shouldn't have bought it when I bought it, but... With
your salary or with...
No, we somewhere along the line, we sold 5% of our company to Macquarie Bank. And I think a 25 mil EV, which was definitely undervalued at the time, but I was so broke that I had to sell some of my own shares just to have a couple of $100,000 cash injection.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, paying off a mortgage or doing anything like that, I bought an Aston.
Why not? And you're a car lover.
I am a car lover.
Through and through by the sounds.
And honestly, if I hadn't bought it, I wouldn't have done half the shit I've done since then, because I met so many people through that purchase that helped me through life. Mm-hmm. People that have been significantly more successful than me, who I met through that car community. Because, I think we were having this chat prior to the podcast. When you see a guy driving a $500,000 car or an $800,000 car, unless he's inherited all the money, which is pretty fucking rare these days, he's done something of value to society or other people that has allowed him to accumulate that amount of money to not only buy the car, but to pay the horrendous amount of tax to buy the car. First on his income, then on the luxury car tax, the GST, the import duty, the stamp duty. I worked it out roughly, it's about 70% tax
That's insane.
of every dollar. So you really, for every dollar you make, you're only paying 30% of it to buy a high-end supercar. So if someone's driving around in $1 million Aventador, they've almost paid for a fucking school for a while. Like, it's insane. And I love to meet those people. It's great to meet those people because, one, you have to really fucking love cars to pay that much tax to own one. And two, they must have a fucking great story.
Yeah.
And I've never met anyone with a cool car that hasn't got a fucking great story. And by having a cool car, I met so many other people with cool cars that had great stories that I learned so much that really helped me with my business and my life and my financial decisions.
Yeah.
So that's how I justify the purchase anyway.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to justify it.
Worked.
I think too, like you're saying, business people contribute a lot more than just, if they have bought the car, then they've had to work really hard for it. It's not just something that they've been able to buy easily with cash. Sometimes they can, but they've made a big contribution to society. And
well, that cash has got to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah. And often a business is more than just one person, so they're paying wages and they're paying to put plates of food on the tables of families. And
that's the thing. I when I was growing up, I was very left wing. I was even member of the Socialist Alliance. I used to have a shirt that said "Know Your Marx," which had a picture of Karl Marx on it.
Awesome, I remember them.
Yeah, I was very, very left-leaning. I guess that came from my parents to an extent. And I didn't really understand the concept of capitalism. I'm not saying capitalism is great. It's got plenty of warts on it and has led to a lot of dreadful things. But we live in a country, in Australia at least here, where we're talking, that has a very solid foundation in terms of society where people are generally okay. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely. Even people on welfare are getting paid more than the average wage from
that's what I
third
mean.
world countries.
I don't know about, definitely compared to that. I'm not saying that it's nice to be poor in Australia at all. It's not. But you have the opportunity not to be poor. Mm-hmm. And that opportunity is real. I can tell you, I came from a war-torn country into Australia with my parents when we had exactly $0 in the bank.
Where were you from?
From Iran.
And how old were you?
When I came here, I was 9.
Okay.
So, when I came here, we had nothing. There was no money. We had fucking nothing. We lived in a really crappy place. My parents were studying at UQ. They had no money. We had no money. My mum worked. She moved to Gladstone to work away from me when I was a kid, really, because it was the only job she could get as a substitute teacher. Now, we're talking about someone who's got a fucking PhD in child psychology.
Wow.
And she had to remove that from her resume to get a job because she was overqualified, but she couldn't find anything else.
Yeah.
And, I know what it's like to be poor. I remember so many instances where I know things didn't happen for me because my parents didn't have the money to make it happen. And I was never resentful or anything like that. But it gave me an unbelievable amount of determination not to be poor. I didn't want to be poor. It was a fear. I didn't ever want to feel like I was living in a situation where I didn't know if I could afford to live the following month. And that's why when I said to you, when that notification came on my phone, it was like a relief. I'm pretty sure I actually cried for a long time. It still makes me want to cry now when I talk about it, but it's a surreal feeling. It's a surreal feeling to go, okay, I did that. It's like one of those life goals where you can tick it off and go, I'm okay. Like, financially, I'll be okay. Unless I put it all on black or something. But I'm not a gambler in a traditional sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah. Amazing story, Alborz. I'm very motivated by you and your accomplishments, and I really hope the audience can take some advice from you and really be inspired by your grit and hard work and changing lives, not only in your own company, but I'm sure you've helped some people make great decisions with the cars that they've bought. So yeah, thank you for
no problems at all
making the time to come
Absolutely.
Here today and share your story. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to listening to the other podcasts because I think people probably don't even realize, but I listen to these podcasts myself a lot. Like, I love listening to other successful people talk about, and most of these people are significantly more successful than me. It's just really amazing to hear their stories because they've all got something to teach you.
Yeah.
Every single person, whether they're successful or not, have got something to teach you. So I'm always open to listening.
Fantastic. What's your legacy too? What's the legacy you want to leave, not only in car advice, but beyond your years? What's the legacy?
It's a good question. I haven't really necessarily thought about it. Obviously, the book means a lot to me because I feel like it's something tangible that my grandkids could still, at some point in the future, read. It's a story of something, 10 years of my life, really, and beyond and prior. I really want to speak to more people about, I guess, entrepreneurship and starting their own business, which is something I do through UQ and a few other events here and there. I feel like if I'd met myself 15 years ago, it would have had a really big impact, because I was so, every time I failed, I was like, okay, I'm a fucking loser. Like I'm just not made out to do this. And no one ever told me, no, you're not a loser. It's okay to fail. Because no one fucking celebrates failure. No one talks about, failure. I read something that the guy from Airbnb wrote recently about how they were laughed out the room by every investor at the beginning, about how stupid their idea was, and what it was like to go through that process. And they actually almost gave up before they actually got someone to support their idea. And look at where it is now. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. But legacy-wise, man, I don't know. I just hope my kids are proud of me, and I hope that they, it's not about money. I just hope to have a happy life and experience things. That's really all I care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. All right. Thanks again, Alborz,
Thank
for
you.
coming on.
Thanks for having me.